Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and a new paper crafting video where I am doing a little class for you on the Spellbinders club kits for June 2023. Now, they have a ton of kits you can have delivered to you every month, and in this video, I'm focusing on the large die of the month, the Glimmer Kit of the month, the 3D embossing folder of the month, the regular embossing folder of the month, and the stamp and die set of the month. I'm going to use all these together or individually because they coordinate so well together. So we're going to start out with the large die of the month. It's always the one I am super excited to get. And this month it is a bottle, and there's a scene you can create in the bottle with a whale. It's so very cute. So I'm going to take the largest die, which is the full shape of the bottle, and die cut it from a piece of paper that's 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So you can see it really takes up that full piece of paper. And then there's another bottle that is divided. So it's going to cut out like the sand and the water that you can put inside of the bottle, and it's going to piece together perfectly. It's very cool. And then there's this other glass piece that goes at the top to divide the cork. So it looks like the cork is in the bottle itself. It's really neat. Okay, then we've got tags, we've got the whale, we have a splash, and we have extra dies that look like waves at the top of the water, and other little pieces to complete the scene, like coral and grass and a rock. It's a great set. As always, Spellbinders does a great job with all the details. So now for this water part, it's going to go together a little bit like a puzzle, which I will say I had a little trouble right here. I had to remove a piece, flip it over, and then this last piece right here is the one that kind of got me, and it's going to go right here. So if you follow that order, you'll be doing great. But I just use different colors of blue and white to do my waves there. Also, the whale, super easy to put together. You're going to layer the two largest pieces, then there's a tail, and there's a second fin that you can put behind the whale just like that. So really easy to do the whale. There is a little piece in the mouth that is die cut open. So on this particular card, I am going to fill it in with a pencil, but you could also do a die cut. So you'll see that in a moment. But here's the seaweed and the coral and the rock. You can add as much of this as you want to the bottom. I'm leaving a little space because I'm actually going to turn this into a shaker card. You'll see how it comes together. But this bottle is also great for making a shape card. You could make a second whole bottle panel, attach the two, and score the bottle like around the neck and have this open as a card itself. You can also have it fit onto an A2 size card or A9 or A7, like the 5x7 size. So it's really versatile, and you can fill this bottle with other things that you already own. So it's a pretty cool set. I'm adding the little splash right here so it fits inside the bottle, and then you can see what my completed scene looks like. Here is where I'm going to bring in that black liner pen and fill in the mouth, and then a little dot to make like a pupil for the eye. Like that. And then I added a little bit of shadowing to the white with my I did an N1 gray marker there, just to give it a little bit more depth perception. Okay, so this panel right here that I am doing some stenciling on is where I die cut out that full bottle. It's going to be the front of my shaker panel. So with this Sunray die, it is from Spellbinders. I'm not sure if it's still available. I've had it for a while. I am doing white ink and having it kind of fade out at the edges. Next, I die cut the bottle, but just from a portion of some craft colored cardstock to kind of look like the bottle is sitting in sand. So I'm going to glue that down, and then I die cut it from paper that was plenty big so I could easily match it up and then just cut off the excess around it. So you'll see I did that. And then I thought the flat edges was just not good. So I took some scissors and I just fussy cut, actually, the edge of that sand so it looks a little bit more natural, like the bottle landed there, you know? Okay, so now I have my card base, which is 6x6. So I guess my card front panel is 6x6. I thought it had an edge all the way around, but actually it is 6 by 6. And I'm just laying it there on the card so I can figure out exactly where that bottle needs to be so I can make this into a shaker. So you can see I removed that top panel now that my bottle's in place, and I did the background of my card the same color as the bottle. So when this card front panel on the front is lifted up because it's a shaker and it's got the foam tape there, when you see into the edge of the card, it's actually the same color as the bottle. I thought that would just help, just in case I got it off from the bottle a tiny bit, it would still be the same color. Okay, so I have lined my window with some foam tape and put some around the edge as well. And now I'm adding some confetti pieces that are from Trinity Stamps. They have them in all these different colors that I thought was really fun. Some of them are matte, some of them are shiny, and they're really nice and flat. So that's what I did. But I realized I actually wanted to put the confetti bits on the bottle, not on the window. So I just used my little tidy tray there, flipped it over, collected all my pieces, and then added them onto my bottle, and which kind of helped me realize I think I have a few too many. So I actually have a little less than I started with. And now I removed the back off of the foam tape and put that window down and just lined it up with my bottle and the edge of my card base, and it worked out really good. So here's that cork. You can see there are two layers to the cork, a solid piece and like a piece that has little circles die cut into it to give it texture. And then you just put that bottle piece in between the two. There's actually even an etched line on the bottle's base, so it kind of gives you a guide as to where to place this second piece. So it's really handy, and I love how it makes it look like the cork is like pushed down into the bottle top. And this is a little string piece to tie your cord onto. So I thought a pop of red would look really good with this nautical themed card and just really stand out. There are two different dies you can die cut onto the tag to give it a sentiment. It like cuts the letters into the paper. This one says hi, the other one says for you. And now I am taking a Copic marker and just adding a little bit of texture and color to the edge of the sand, some dots here and there, and that just helps it, you know, not look so flat. It brings it to life just a little bit. So that's what I did. And then I'm going to add a little bit more to the scene. So there's some seaweed and coral around the bottle as well. And that gives me another pop of color. So I thought that was really fun. And I had all those extra little shaker pieces left over. So I'm adding those to the bottom of the scene as well. They're kind of, just decorative elements. I didn't really think that they look like treasure or sand necessarily. Maybe some shells. I don't know. They're just really fun. So I thought it was really cool to have those on the outside as well as the inside of my shaker. So there it is. And I thought it was really a different idea and way to use this die set than maybe you have seen from some of the other designers from Spellbinders. So there's a 6 by 6 card using the bottle as a shaker card. Yeah, it's such a cool set. I love that whale. I'm going to use them again on the next card, which is also a shaker, but we're going to use the Glimmer Hot Foil Kit of the Month for June 2023 on this one. It has these amazing waves. Look at these. They're really fun. And then dies that you can cut out the waves, and also a sentiment, sending an ocean of thanks, which I think is a really nice sentiment. I am going to use Sky Bright Foil. Now, with the Glimmer Kit of the Month, the foil color that they send you may vary from the one that I got. It's not always the same for everybody, so that's okay. And now I am going to hot foil this onto white paper. I'm going to do both pieces here onto white paper so I can layer them up. So the foil goes face up onto your cardstock and the hot foil plate goes face down. I taped it in place and I'm putting the whole thing together face down onto my preheated Glimmer hot foil system. I push the timer button and then put my plates on top. While that's heating up, I am doing my second plate, which I thought this was going to be the background of my card, which is why it's like a card front size panel, but actually I will end up cutting it a little bit, so you'll see that. So now that that timer has gone off, I removed the plate part of my hot foil system, ran it through my die machine, and now I can remove that plate and you can see that gorgeous wave plate hot foiled. It's so pretty. I'll go ahead and do the second piece, and I didn't do all of them at the same time with the sentiment because I find when I do multiple plates at one time, it tends to make the plates jump as it runs through the die cutting machine, and you can get some extra foiling there that I don't love. But there you can see what it looks like die cut out. I love that I can die cut the top and the bottom, or just the top or just the bottom with those dies. So here's the second one, and I'm going to hot foil the sentiment at the top, which is, I thought, like I said, was going to be the background of my card. But you'll see what happens. Sometimes when you hot foil, there are things that don't go right. Like I just folded my tape over onto the back of my card, which gave it a little extra thickness, which meant that it over foiled or did extra foiling in one spot. So what I'm going to do to fix that is die cut just the top of the wave, and then my sentiment, I am going to do a little bit of sand eraser on that, you'll see. And I'm going to cut it out because also it foiled a little bit crooked. Okay, then we'll get to that. But the next step in this card is to add some ink to my background to really give this the feel of ocean. And I love that hot foiling actually resists ink. So I can put ink over the top of this, but it's not going to stick there. It's not going to dry there. I will be able to go back and buff that off. So I am using Uncharted Mariner. That's the word, Uncharted Mariner. It's not a sauce. And then Salvaged Patina. I love these two colors together so much. So here you'll see little paper towel, buff off the ink, and look how that hot foil just pops back to life. It's really cool. So I did this one pretty dark. It's going to be the background part of my card. And also it's the ocean, so I want a little bit of splatter, which, you know, pretty much on any ink blending situation, I like a little bit of splatter. So spritzed it with water and picked up the excess ink. I'm going to just buff off my sponge because I want to do now a background for my card that's going to be pretty much the sky portion of this. And so I'm using just Salvage Patina and having it fade out or get lighter as I move towards what will be the top of the card. It's also getting splattered, even though it's a light dusting of ink and it's a light color. I have to do it. I have to be uniform on all the pieces. Okay, so here's that piece that I die cut the top and the bottom, and I am going to do the same two colors of ink, but a little bit lighter. And it is still blending together really good, even though it's lighter. And I love the look of this, that you can go dark, you can go light, and you can also go back and add more if you need a little bit darker edge. So very cool. I love Distress Oxide inks. I would love to know, which do you like better? Distress Oxide ink for ink blending or traditional Distress ink? Tell me in the comments below which one you like the best. Okay, so I've buffed off the excess ink and there it is, ready to go. So now let's get back to that sentiment where I had the hot foiling mistake, a little excess foil. I'm using a Mono Tombow sanding eraser. It works really good for just removing those little extra bits. And like I said, this was crooked, which is another part of the problem. So I'm going to bring out my scissors and fussy cut this as if it was die cut in a bubble shape. So I just find if I move that paper with my left hand while cutting with my right, I'm able to cut a little bit nicer, and practice makes perfect. Well, practice makes it easier. I don't know if it's perfect, but guess what? It doesn't have to be perfect. The whole thing about making these cards is just playing. And you'll see that when I make all these cards today, I'm going to have fun with splatter, making backgrounds, and getting an ocean look. So I added some white splatter with my Dr. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It is really cool. I got it from Amazon. I'll link it for you below. I learned about it from a fellow crafter, Mary Polanco, and I love it. I use it a lot for white splatter now. I added some Sparkle Silk, which is from Spellbinders. They carry it in the shop, but what they don't carry anymore is this splatter right here that was Turbo Teal. They've retired a lot of their colors. I still have some, so I'm going to use them. But you could use like any of the Distress Oxide mica sprays. You could use metallic watercolor, whatever. So here now I'm adding my waves. You can see how the sky is lighter than the water, even though I used Salvage Patina on both. And now I have my A2 sized panel that is a shaker pouch. It's from Trinity Stamps, and I'm going to use that to make a full panel shaker for this card. And I put double-sided adhesive on 3 sides of my panel. By the way, I did wait for this to dry because it had all that splatter on it. You want to make sure that's nice and dry before moving on and putting it inside of a plastic thing, or you can get all that transferred onto your shaker panel. So I put the adhesive down and folded up 3 of the flaps on this pouch, and then I can add my shaker bits. So these are more of those confetti bits, and I'm using like white or clear but with an iridescent finish to be like splashes of the ocean in this card. So I added those and they are gorgeous. I actually did 3 different colors, and now this one is a little bit different in that it's completely flat confetti, where the other ones have a little bit of an edge. It's white with glitter in it. Oh, it's one of my favorite embellishments. So I will link all of these things for you in the description box below. So if you're totally into embellishments like me, you can go check them out. All right, so now that we have the shaker bits, how we like them, I had to make sure some of them were laying down. So I used my pokey tool for that before folding over and sealing that last flap. Now, the next step I like to take is to seal that even more shut so it doesn't pop open with a second layer of the double stick tape, where it's half on the flap of the pouch and half on my background of my cardstock, and it really helps keep it sealed, and I'll use it later to adhere it to my card base. All right, so here's the wave. I'm using a mix of double stick tape and glue. That's how I roll. I don't like things popping off, so that's what I did, and I'm adding that to the front of the card, but you can see below it and you can see above it, and it's really fun for this full panel shaker. And then here comes my sentiment. I can make sure it's straight because it wasn't the first time. And now I'm using the same exact whale. I did the same exact colors as I did on the whale for the bottle, because I already had that color out. When I'm making multiple cards like this and playing with multiple products, a lot of times I will go back to something I already have out, use it the same way, use it a different way, and it really helps when you're making multiple cards to do that. So I'll glue that down, and next I'm going to take a piece of hot foil and this solid plate from Spellbinders, and I'm just going to hot foil myself a little solid piece, kind of like I'm making a piece of foiled paper. See that? Now I can use this to die cut something from. So I just die cut or fussy cut off the excess white paper. I added a piece of double-sided adhesive sheet to the back so I could then die cut out these splashes, and they're small pieces. So that's why I wanted the double-sided adhesive on the back. Plus I'm sticking it down to that plastic window, and this is perfect for the little splashes that are coming like as spray from the whale, and it matches the hot foiling in the background of my card. So there's a little fun way you can use your hot foil if you have a solid plate like this. Spellbinders has several in different shapes. I just happen to have the circle, and it's really handy. So that's what I did for the spray. I think it's really fun little addition to this card. So I even added the tiny little circles because they already have the adhesive on the back. Look at that. Very fun. Okay, we're adding this now to the card base. I added a little bit of liquid glue. Also remember that tape I put around the edge. That's going to help hold it down to my A2 size card base. So the card base was 5.5 by 8.5, and I scored it at 4 1/4. And then I'm adding a blue piece of cardstock where his mouth is, instead of doing the pen like I did before, because it's on a window sheet. So I just glued that in place and put a dot for his eye. Okay, we're moving on to card number 3, and I am bringing out the 3D embossing folder of the month. Look at these shells. They're so good. So this 3D embossing folder, it really makes detailed impressions, and they're so thick. I don't know how to explain it. It's so 3D. It's a lot more detailed than a regular embossing folder. I mean, if you haven't tried them, you've got to. So I'm using the universal plate system from Spellbinders. It allows you to do 3D embossing folders from like any company, regular embossing folders from any company, and it shows you different shims and things that come with it, how to use them for different companies' embossing folders. So cool. The next thing I'm doing is bringing out some lunar paste from it's from the Spellbinders shop, but it's made by Simon Hurley, but they carry it at Spellbinders. And I like to do this where I rub the paste onto the cardstock that it kind of matches the color. And that just really hides a little bit of like the messiness of it. And I get that really fun shine on there. It is gorgeous. So if you like techniques and you like 3D embossing folders, you should check out my 10 techniques for 3D embossing folder video. I will link it for you in the description box below if you haven't seen it. So I'm doing another piece of paper in it purple with a different color of the paste, and ooh, it's so fun to do. But here you can see when you are doing this on a paper that doesn't quite match the paste, it gets a little bit messy. And what I'm doing with this isn't really going to matter that it's messy, because I'm going to cut out some of these shells and I'm going to do some paper piecing. So it's going to be fun. Now that everything's dry, I'm going to cut out some of the purple pieces, and it's easy to do because this is so deep of an impression. I can easily cut around these pieces. Now I did speed it up because I fussy cut rather slowly, but yeah, they're easy to cut out, trust me. Okay, so that is cut out, and I'm going to do a bunch of the pieces from the purple, and I'm going to do some from some matte silver cardstock. So I'm going to have some of the purple, some of the silver, and now it's true confession time. At this point in the process, I was not loving this. Like, I literally had to walk away from it and come back to it later, so much so that I went on vacation and left this on my desk. And when I came back, I decided, you know what? I have a motto where I just keep going. Even if I'm not loving something, I have the idea, I want to just keep going. So that's what I decided once I got back from my 10-day vacation. Just keep going with this background and let's see what happens. So I've glued everything in place. It's looking a little, you know, pasty. I don't know, like it's, I don't, still wasn't sure. So I decided I'm going to run it through the folder again and help everything really press into place. Get those edges to kind of curve down on where I cut them out. So you just got to move that around a little bit till it kind of clicks into place with the embossing folder. And that really helped it look more uniform. It did squish out a little bit of my glue. I could have waited for the glue to dry a little bit, which left some kind of marks on the paper. So I decided when you want to cover up something like squished glue, you add splatter. So I added some more of that sparkle silk, and I thought that's where things were going to end, but I knew that I only wanted a portion of this card. So I decided I've got my large die of the month, or my Glimmer hot foil kit of the month out, and it's got those waves that cut out those hot foil plates, but I could use them independent of cutting out those waves and cut out the edge of this cardstock. But running it through the die cut machine kind of weakened the 3D effect of the embossing. So I clicked it back into place on the 3D embossing folder and ran it through again. Once I added it to my A2 size card, I decided I didn't like the waves on the bottom. I only wanted them at the top, and I wanted a little bit of this craft to show through like it was the sand. So I'm bringing back in my Dr. Phil Martin No Bleed White. It's very, very thick. So I just almost grab some with my paintbrush. I put it on a window sheet so I can get less on the tip of my brush, and then I'm just pouncing it out. This paintbrush of mine is a very scraggly brush with a flat end, so it's almost like a stipple brush. I also like to use it for splatter, but there it kind of gives it the effect as if it's a wave crashing onto the beach. Even though it's more representational than realism, I'm not going for a perfect scene. I love the look that it gives. So I had a lot of that paint left over. I thinned it out for a little bit with water so I could splatter it, and added that to my scene. But I needed a little bit more of the purple. I needed to repeat the purple on this card to really help tie it all together. So I brought some of that lunar paste out, added it to my little acetate window sheet here, thinned it with water, and also splattered some of that onto my card. And I really liked that. I felt like the purple was just kind of like hanging out there. It didn't make a lot of sense, but adding the purple splatter, I really felt tied it all together. So you could add just a sentiment to this, but I wanted to make a little bit more detail, a little bit more of a scene, so to speak, on this card. So I am bringing in the clear stamp set of the month for June 2023. It also has a whale, but it's a different kind of whale, and he's super cute. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but the cardstock I'm using is a very pale blue, almost with a grayish tint. So I thought it'd be fun to stamp the whale on there and then do some Copic coloring. So when I die cut him out, he's not going to have a big white edge. That's really what my idea was. And I hadn't done much Copic coloring on colored cardstock, so I wasn't sure how it was going to work out. But with a little extra blending, I went over this like a couple extra times. It really did the trick. I really like how it turned out. So this cardstock is from Spellbinders. I have found that Spellbinders colored cardstock is very smooth. Like I can hot foil onto the Spellbinders colored cardstock with no trouble, but other companies' colored cardstock does not hot foil well. So when you're hot foiling, you really need smooth paper. So that's why I think also that the Spellbinders paper was good to do Copic coloring on, because it is smooth colored paper. So that's my theory. I'm sticking to it. All right, now I'm adding some white gel pen highlights because I always like the white gel pen for images that are underwater, so it has that bit of a shine look to it. And also I feel this kind of whale, maybe it's like a humpback whale or a sperm whale. I'm not sure, but they have a lot of like barnacles and growths on them. That's my idea in my head, the look I was going for. So I wanted to add quite a bit of speckling to him. And there he is, die cut out. And now you can see that the edge is less white because I used that really light blue paper. I'm bringing back the dies from the Glimmer Hot Foil to die cut the edge of this strip of vellum. So I can still see my really cool background through it, but I'm also kind of softening out that really busy background. It gives me a place to stamp my sentiment, which I did in white that says seize the day. And I also wanted a few more elements from the stamp set. So I stamped the little shells and the crab and Copic colored those as well. Here's the markers I used, very simple coloring. And then I'll die cut those out with the coordinating dies. I love that the clear stamp set of the month has coordinating dies. Spellbinders added that. I guess it's probably been close to a year or so that they've had the coordinating dies for the clear stamp set of the month, but it makes me so happy. I just had to point that out. So I strategically placed my adhesive, even though it is vellum adhesive, I like to hide it a little bit with my stamped images. So adding those to the front and just having the shells underneath, the shells on top, it really gives the card more visual interest, more depth. So there is my finished card with that background. Oh, I was not sure about it, but I'm really happy with how it turned out in the end. I thought the paper piecing was really a fun idea to do with the 3D embossing folder. So there is card number 3. Very shiny. Okay, let's move on to card number 4, which actually features the embossing folder of the month. So this is your traditional style embossing folder. One thing I have to say, I love the size of the Spellbinders embossing folders, 9 by 6. So you can do all different kinds of sizes of cards and turn them in different directions. By the way, I'm going to be using the Trinity Stamps it's media paper, kind of like watercolor paper, nice and thick, and I'm going to be doing a ink smooshed background. Now I am kind of moving my ink around once I sprayed it with my fingers, which I totally learned from Tim Holtz, and I'm going to make just an ocean themed background. But you're going to see here, I love getting inky, I love splatter, and I'm just playing. That's the whole idea behind this kind of card class for you, where I'm making multiple cards, is just to have fun. That's what I want to like get across to you. Just have fun with your supplies and mix and match the things, and you'll just really take a break from life. Refill your tank as you're being crafty. That's what it's all about for me, and I hope that that's what it's about for you too. It's not always about making the most perfect, beautiful card, but it really should be about putting your heart into what you're making, Yeah. enjoying it. All right, so I used Uncharted Mariner, Mermaid Lagoon, and Salvage Patina, and I decided to work with my darkest color first and move my way up to the lighter color. You know, do what comes to mind. Do what makes you happy. And remember, it's just paper. So if you hate it, and you keep going and you still hate it, it's just paper. Like, get another piece, save that one for later. You might come back to it later and be like, oh my word, I'm gonna die cut this from this paper that I didn't like, and now it has new life and I love it again. So that's what I do. I have a basket full of backgrounds I've made like this: ink smooshing, gel press printing, watercolor backgrounds. So yeah, save them and rummage through them when you're card making. All right, so Salvage Patina for last, and you can see I am smooshing my paper down. I'm drying it. I'm spritzing it with water. I'm dabbing it with a paper towel, and it's just a ton of fun. And when you have multimedia paper like this, it's nice and thick, so you can do lots of layers. You can do lots of water, splatter, all the things, and it's going to hold up to it versus using just white cardstock. So make sure if you have trouble with yours, you get a nice sturdy paper. It is looking gorgeous, I have to say. I wanted a little bit more Salvage Patina on top, so I brought out my spray, my Distress Oxide spray. Now you can do this with the ink pad, smash it down, mix it with water, but this, I don't have to mix with water, right? It's already full strength color. So I love that. And then when I get really big blotches and it's too dark, I just dab it with the paper towel. Bringing back the No Bleed White and adding some white splatter to this one as well. Splatter, I love. If you don't love splatter, like, don't do it. Do less. But my motto about splatter and why I always put so much is this is a background. It's going to get covered up with whatever I'm doing on the front of the card. So I don't mind doing more than I think that I need. So this paper is like 9 by 4, I believe. So I have 2 pieces now because I cut it down for my card front that is going to be A2 sized. And then I have the other piece, which led me to my 5th card, which you'll see after this one. Okay, so I'm embossing this with that embossing folder of the month, you'll see. And I did spritz it a little bit because the paper's so thick. So I spritzed the embossing folder with water, which, by the way, I do most times when I use the 3D embossing folder to prevent the paper from cracking. So little tip for you there. All right, I am doing the jellyfish. I love him. And I'm going to do one of the sentiments that says, "I'll cross the ocean for you." Ah, I love that. So now I am using my Distress Oxide ink pad, smooshing it down again on my glass mat, but using it to watercolor this time. So I'm going to do one of each color for the 3 colors I used on my background: Salvage Patina, Uncharted Mariner, and Mermaid Lagoon. So just a little watercolor with those. I haven't done much watercoloring with my Distress Oxide. It's pretty fun, and I had to remind myself I don't need so much of the ink smashed onto the mat to do these little jellyfish. So to give them a little bit of something something, I brought back that sparkle silk, and I'm going to watercolor that over the top. Just a few strands down the stringy part of the jellyfish. I'm sure they have technical scientific names for those stringy things, but I don't know them, or I have forgot them. So that's what we're calling them. I die cut those things out, and now I'm bringing in the vellum from Trinity Stamps, which has a like iridescent finish to it. Yeah, I'm all about all things shiny and sparkly for these cards. I got to add a touch of it everywhere. So I also brought out mirror cardstock in Silky Sky from Tonic, and I am adding that in the form of a circle, which I die cut. That's where my sentiment's going to go. But first I wanted to add my jellyfish because they're going to kind of overlap that circle as they're like floating up to the top, and then the sentiment down. Now all of those stamped images I did pop up with dimensional foam squares, which I love. I love popping things up, but sometimes it does cost more when you're mailing your cards, so keep that in mind. All right, bringing in more of the confetti pieces. Yes, Trinity Stamps has them in every single color and lots of blue ones. So lots of clear ones too. I love them. So I'm adding those on here as well in 3 different shades that I thought kind of went with my background. So they're a little bit more subtle, but also look like bubbles floating up to the top. So I'll add those, and I kind of go back and you know, I do a few, go back, add a few more. That's how I roll. And then I have some Journey Glaze. It's maybe just called Glaze. This is the very old bottle that I have. Their bottle looks different now, but it adds that clear, glassy, wet look over the top of my jellyfish, which I think just finishes them perfectly. All right, let's move on to the final card, which I am using leftover pieces. Remember that background from the last one? And then I'd also die cut out the sentiment in a circle, which I thought I was going to use on my whale full panel shaker, and I didn't. I ended up fussy cutting out the first one that I did, so I saved it and I'm going to use it on this card. One of the images that I loved so much from the clear stamp set was this like kind of coral reef looking image. So I wanted that for this card, and I'm going to use a mixture of like teal and turquoise blue, orange, and kind of yellow orange for this, for coloring this up. And I think it really looks great with my card. And after all of the cards that I made, this one is definitely the most simple. Maybe because my background was already made and the sentiment was already hot foiled, so it seems like pretty simple. However, I think it's my favorite out of all of them, which is saying something because I adore shaker cards so much, and I made two. But this, I don't know, it's the colors on this or something. I love it. So please let me know if you're still watching after 5 cards. Let me know which one is your favorite. Maybe let me know if you learned a new technique that you want to try. I would love to know those things. All right, so I did some seaweed and some coral from the large die of the month. I used that shimmery vellum and the mirror cardstock that I used on the last card to die cut them out. It's going to help fill in the scene at the bottom and just go behind the edges of my coral reef that I stamped. So I love that. I'm adding the coral reef with some foam squares on the back and then adding the sentiment. Now you can see I still have some coral, I still have some seaweed. I'm going to add that on there as well. You'll see. So I'll tuck it behind kind of the top, and you see it just gives it more of a 3D look when you have those die cut pieces coming from behind. It's shimmery, but it's still subtle, and I love that. The foiled ones I'm going to put on top, giving it, yes, more of that 3D, like you're kind of looking into the coral reef, you know? Love it. So pretty. All right, so next, there are some flower images in this set. Originally, I thought I was going to stamp the little crab again and put it on top of the sentiment, but I saw the flowers in there and I was like, you know what? I haven't used the flower stamps yet, so I'm going to do that instead. And it might be another reason why I love this card so much. So I brought back the same color Copic markers that I used to color up my coral reef and colored up my flowers using that. I really like matchy-matchy. So you'll see me using matchy-matchy things a lot when I make cards. So I did some orange flowers, I did a turquoise flower, and then the really kind of light grayish blue I'll do for like the leaves in there. You could add some greenery into this, but I just liked the blue and orange look. I am a big fan of blue and orange because the college I went to, Boise State University, their colors are blue and orange, so I've always been a blue and orange fan in any form. I think that just goes really well together, and I love that you can use it in so many different ways, like for your sports team or for these flowers. I don't know. I like it. I think it's pretty. And then I'm going to bring in the white gel pen. Like I said before, it's that little extra touch that gives it life, dimension, shine. I love the white gel pen. I hope you do too. But I know sometimes they can be hard to use. All right, look at me pulling out an embellishment I haven't used yet. These are baubles, also from Trinity Stamps. It's like a peach color with an iridescent shine. I felt like this color went really well with that shell there at the bottom. Really yummy. All right, adding that to my 4x4 card base. So the top panel, the like ink smooshed background, I did cut down to 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So I have that nice white border. I love a white border around the edge on my cards. So good. So let's take another look at all 5 of the cards I made today. I really had so much fun doing the video this way, where I put all of my club kits together and did one video, which is different than how I normally do it. So I need you to tell me if you like this kind of video. It's longer, but it was so much fun for me. So you have to tell me, do you like it? If so, give me a thumbs up. Comment below your thoughts on today's video because I love chatting with you. And I'm going to see you all again very soon on the next video. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe because I have new paper crafting videos all the time. I'll see you soon. Happy stamping. Bye.